Okay.
Perfect.
So, hey, a belated good morning. We're only 40 minutes late. This is the Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers, and it is our regular Saturday, June 1st meeting. Time is about 10:40. I am Peter Halley, the chairman. The meeting is being audio and video recorded. The meeting is a virtual meeting. There's no in-person participation at this meeting, and we're proceeding under the rules that are established by Massachusetts for virtual meetings. Let me do a membership count for the quorum. Kathy Baird, I think she is not on. Lou Bassano, Gary Beller.
Here.
Patty Deuster, Lynn Filipski, I know she's not going to be here. Don Green.
Here.
I'm Peter Halley. I'm here. Peter Kahn.
Here.
Donna Martino.
She's here. She's just off
camera. Yeah, I just admitted her.
Yep.
Steve Perlman is here. Pam Swan. Scott Ulm.
He's here.
Scott's here.
Okay. Gene Briskman.
Yeah.
Bill Gardner. Anybody whose name I haven't called that is not here, so I'm going to count these up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is what I get.
Did you get me, Peter?
Yeah, that's over. That's a quorum. That's over half.
So we have a quorum, in which case go to approval of. Do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Except for the link.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the agenda is approved. Approval of the proposed minutes from the last meeting of May 4th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, and second?
Second.
Anybody, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. And which brings us belatedly to our guest speaker. Is Christy, are you on now?
Yeah,
she is.
Oh, great. So first of all, apologies. But I'll tell you, this is not the first time we've had a little difficulty in this regard. Just let me, brief introduction. It's a typical introduction of a person who needs no introduction. I was amazed to see all of the experience that you've had. An economist by training, former select board member, which of course we all knew, finance director at Island Energy Services, president of the Nantucket Chamber of Commerce for several years, and a master's degree in applied economics. It looks like you have the requisite background for the job that you have, but probably the most important thing is sort of a passion for what you're doing. And I think at least those of us who've seen you over the years know that you're a passionate person for public service. And thank you for being here. And why don't you let us know what you need from us and whether you need to share the screen and things like that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the introduction and for inviting me to speak today. I'm Christy Farentell. I'm the new housing director for the town of Nantucket. I joined the town just about late December, right before the holidays, and really kind of hit the ground running on a lot of things. What I was planning to do is go over a couple of the big projects that we've been working on. And then happy if you guys want to interrupt as I'm going or take questions at the end, feel free to chime in whenever. But to start off, there's no real secret that there's an affordable housing crisis on the island. It's something that the community has been engaged in for several years, and town meeting has been supporting with funding over the last several town meetings. We've really seen this creep from an affordable housing crisis to an attainable housing crisis, where even teachers, DPW employees, nonprofit executive directors, all are having trouble finding stable year-round housing. This past year, 2023, the median home price was $3.5 million. And at a median home price of that, you need to be earning close to $900,000 a year, or 6 times our median income, to be able to afford a home. So the Affordable Housing Trust and the Housing Department is really working on all avenues to engage new programs and new funding sources to really tackle this and really try to create what we call a bifurcated market, so that there's a stock of year-round affordable homes, for our fire, policemen, executive directors, and such. And then there's also the stock of seasonal homes on the island. And so the Trust has been working with a lot of our nonprofit partners and advocating at the state for a couple of new tools. So I wanted to go over the status of the transfer fee and where that stands. If you guys aren't familiar, Governor Healy has introduced the Affordable Homes Act. And one of the key components of this was the inclusion of a local option transfer fee. And this is something that Nantucket actually was the first one to introduce in 2016 through a home rule petition. We went up to the state and requested, similar to the land bank fee, could we impose a transfer fee when homes are sold, and this would be placed on the seller to pay a fee of 0.5% on anything over $2 million. So unlike the land bank, which covers the full portion of the sales price, this would just be on the portion over $2 million. And year after year, town meeting has approved this. We've gone up to the state, and the state has rejected the ability for us to do this. So when Governor Healy came in last year, basically the state has to reissue a bond for their housing programs every 5 years. So she came forward with this huge bill, doubling the amount of funds up to $4.1 billion. And with that included over a dozen policy tools, which is something that's never really been included with the bond bill. And so as soon as we heard this, everybody in Nantucket was extremely excited. This is something that we really feel like we've been getting close to getting over the finish line to have this transfer fee. And so having the support of Governor Healy and the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, we really thought this could kind of be the time that this comes to fruition. So we've been spending a lot of time advocating at the state, working with local partners. So Nantucket started it as a home rule petition, and then we've seen all others pursue. Martha's Vineyard, the city of Boston, there's places out in Western Mass. There's a whole coalition of people who really want this transfer fee to provide funding for affordable housing. So we recently heard from the Speaker of the House that it's unlikely that they might adopt it for the entire state, but that's where we're really trying to advocate, again, for some sort of uniqueness determination to allow Nantucket to opt into this. So another part of the Affordable Homes Act that Governor Healy put through is what they're calling a seasonal communities designation. And with this, it would basically allow seasonal communities that have a high population influx to have access to different tools and resources. So in the state, there's what they call gateway communities, and those are communities that they're trying to drive economic development to. So it'd be similar to that, where we basically would have access to different tools and resources and possible funding sources to the state. And so the shift over the last couple of weeks has been to advocate for that real estate transfer fee to be part of that seasonal communities designation. And that could provide Nantucket the opportunity to have this fee. So just for reference, if this fee had been in place in 2023, the Affordable Housing Trust would have had just about $6 million in funding. So this really is a huge potential for the island. And we're really hoping that we can get the support at the state level to allow us to opt into this. If anybody is interested, we're always writing letters up to the state and the speaker, and we'd love to have all the support going up there to support this. So they have a few more weeks. We're told that the speaker should be, that the House should be taking this up soon, and they have until July 31st for the Senate and the House to agree on something and put it forth to the governor. If something does happen and we do have the transfer fee, we will try to get it on the special town meeting warrant. And if not, it'll be annual town meeting of next year because we'll have to opt in locally. So it won't be something that we can opt into right away, but we will definitely work hard to do it as soon as possible. So that's kind of where the transfer fee stands. The second big initiative that the trust has been working on is creating a year-round deed restriction pilot program. So to give you a little background on this, we're always looking around the country at what other towns are doing to support affordable housing. And we learned in places in Colorado and California and Michigan, they've created what they call a year-round deed restriction. And so, we have conservation restrictions and we have affordability restrictions, but they created a year-round deed restriction. And this basically limits the occupancy of the dwelling to whatever you define as year-round. And so we've put through a home rule petition up to the state to allow us to adopt a year-round deed restriction, which would require occupancy of 10 months a year. The other 2 months wouldn't be able to be short-term rented, but that's what we're defining as year-round is 10 months. And the way these programs work is it basically is a way for the trust to purchase these deed restrictions and provide cash to either a potential buyer, which could be a down payment assistance, or if it's an existing homeowner and they're interested in the deed restriction, we would be providing kind of this cash incentive and a way for them to stay in their home and remain in their home, knowing that when it sells, it would sell to a year-round family, and again, create this market of year-round homes in perpetuity. So it's been very successful in the city of Vail, Colorado. They've had it for, I want to say just over 10 years or so, and they've acquired several deed restrictions and really creating a market where potential homeowners and people that are moving into Vail can access this down payment assistance in exchange for deed restricting their home or condo. So the trust has worked over the past year doing community surveys and listening sessions, working with a consultant named Judy Barrett to develop the program and the guidelines. And just a few weeks ago, we got approval from the select board to fund the program with an initial $2 million. So the trust is going to be working over the next couple of weeks to finalize those guidelines. And then we'll be issuing a bunch of press and getting the word out there when we'll be accepting applications for this program. But it's currently a pilot program while we're waiting on the state to approve the year-round deed restriction. So with it being issued from the trust, there is an affordability restriction on it as well. And so unlike other programs in Colorado where they're just looking at the occupancy, our deed restriction would also serve families making up to 240% of area and median income, and the resale value would be capped at that as well. So right now, a family making 240% of area and median income is a family of four is just over $350,000, and the max sales price would be a $1.2 million home for this program. So it's kind of in the last stretch of being developed and getting ready to issue. And I just think a really big accomplishment for the trust, something that they've been talking about for several years, and we got underway. And so I'm really excited to see this program come to fruition and really be able to provide, similar to our Covenant program, another round of housing stock at another affordability level. So those are kind of the two big things that I've been working on since I've started in this position. We're always looking for new tools in our toolbox, and we're always looking to further increase the amount of affordable housing on the island. A few projects that the trust has kind of completed or has approved in the last couple of months is some home ownership opportunities. So if you look at what the trust has accomplished in the last 5 years, a lot of the programs and projects have been around rentals because we've been really focused on staying in safe harbor, which we've done since 2019. But this past couple months, we've approved grants and loans to both Habitat for Humanity and Richmond Development, and together they're going to be creating 13 homes for home ownership that are going to be completed. Richmond by the end of this year and Habitat by the end of next year. So we're really excited to see those home ownership opportunities come on the market. And I can stop there and open it up for any questions.
Sure, thanks. Just for, I think, the group and probably my own knowledge, it seems to me there's sort of two facets of this affordable housing, which I think you mentioned, but one is perhaps basic, shelter for people who can't have difficulty affording basic shelter. And then I think the other is maybe the attainable housing, what you were talking about, which it seems to be more like if you take your typical, middle of the economy family, can they afford a nice house in the neighborhood or Nantucket? And it looks like you're now aimed at both with somewhat different programs.
Correct.
And it's sort of from the outside, it's a little bit hard to understand, but it seems to me that sort of the middle income piece is, just as important as the lower income piece, especially in Nantucket, because as I understand it, the average person 20 years ago was living pretty nicely in a house, and the average person today may not have a house. And so the average person is still working hard and doing all the things they should be doing. It's just the housing market has kind of gone crazy. So
absolutely.
These programs
and what we've seen is the state and the federal funding really helps at that lower income, things making under 100% of earned median income. And that's where the trust has really stepped in funding. As you guys probably have seen, the development at 31 Fairgrounds, Housing Nantucket is developing 22 units of rental. And the trust funded this project, and that's really a mixture of affordable and attainable. So it's going up to serving families making 150% of AMI. And it's actually going to be completed this summer, and they're accepting applications now. So we have some of the units there are going to be lotteried for the low income, and then the workforce housing will be selected off of a ready to rent list.
So what is the gap between what we have and what we need in the next 5 years or something?
Yeah, so what we've really been focused on, at least from the trust and the select board's standpoint, is to maintain local control over development, and that's been to prevent 40B developments. So we've really been focused on this SHI number at the state, which is that 10% of our year-round housing stock would be deemed affordable. And talking with the select board, and Matt Fee always says, other towns are looking for that to be 20 or 30%. And so I think that's ultimately where we'll go. But at this moment, we're looking at the SHI list and reaching our 10%. It does update every 10 years with the census. So we had just gotten to about 7% of our housing stock being affordable, and then they did the 2020 census, and now we're just a little over 5%. So we still have about over 300 units to create, but a lot of those are in the pipeline over the next 2 years.
Great. Do other people have questions?
I do. I have a quick one here.
Yeah, I do too.
I do too.
Christy, if I'm not sure I totally understand the trust, but if I heard you correctly, there's a cap of 1.2 million for a home. How many homes are there that would be at that level that would be available? It strikes me that not that many. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know.
Right. Yeah. So currently, if you go on the market, there's nothing at that level, and that's what's really dire about this challenge. With this year-round deed restriction program, the opportunity would be to buy in. So if your house is appraised at 1.5 million, the trust could potentially buy it down to that 1.2 with a $300,000 subsidy. So that's where a funding source like a transfer fee would really help in funding the buy down of those units. What we've also seen in other communities is the potential to work with developers as they're about to do a program and to buy down the units. And so as they're developing the home, you know, they're creating the quality of a $1.2 million home, not a $3.5 million home. So, you know, not the state of the art refrigeration and stove, but, you know, a decent, affordable home for home ownership. So we'll be looking to explore that potential as well as working with developers.
Okay, and if I can just follow up, if there's $2 million set aside for this buy down, I mean, they're not that many homes at 1.5 million either. I mean, it doesn't seem to me that 2 million is going to go very far if you're buying, if you've got to try to buy it down to 1.2 million. You're talking about
Right.
less than a handful of houses.
And that's been the biggest concern from the select board. And this is why it's really a pilot program to see, you know, what is possible. And most other towns, it's really used as a down payment assistance to purchase a home. And we're thinking that it's going to be more of an interest to people who already own a home and want to stay in their home, and basically be a way to buy out their mortgage, and then they can stay in their home. And then when they do go to sell, it would be capped, but they would have that cash that they had received ahead of time.
Just one last point, and just strikes me, and I just leave it at this, that the way to try to incentivize this is to get the contractors. You've got to incentivize the builders to build the houses that people can afford at that price range. Otherwise, it just strikes me that this is an insurmountable problem that will keep reaching and you'll never make it. Just a thought.
Absolutely.
Gary?
Peter?
Yep.
Yes. Hi, Christy. Thank you for being here with us. I have two questions, two different subjects. First one relates to the program that we're talking about, the deed restriction. You said something that surprised me a little bit, which was that to encourage this, the town is going to provide some kind of financial aid to help people or make payments that will enable them to feel comfortable in restricting this deed. But at the same time, I thought you said that they would be able to short-term rent for a couple of months. Is that correct or not?
No, so they wouldn't be able to short-term rent at all, but it would, what we've defined as year-round just for the statute is 10 months. So if they were, you know, to travel as a family, they could go and travel, but they just couldn't short-term rent their home in that time.
Okay. All right. That makes me feel better. That's
Yeah.
my first question. My second question relates to a project that I've been frustrated about for the last 3 or 4 years, as has the town been, which is the housing development behind the police headquarters, which we kept waiting and waiting for it to start. I forget how many, was it 64 units that
Yes.
will be available for town employees and which has been delayed forever. Can you tell us where we are on that? Have we finally got the funding in place to actually begin having that finished?
Yes. So what Gary's referencing is a project called Tacoma Green. And when the town purchased the complex at 2, 4, and 6 Fairgrounds, they designated the parcel at 6 Fairgrounds to be housing. So it will be town employees, but also the community members. It'll be all levels of affordability, and a few market rate rentals as well. And so this project was awarded in 2017 to the developers Hall Keen, and then it went through a whole litigation, a lawsuit that was filed by neighbors appealing the planning board's decision, the permit. So it didn't come out of litigation until 2020, kind of the end of 2020. And then when they kind of established the value, the cost with COVID and, you know, rising construction costs, had gone from about a $22 million project to a $55 million project. So this is a project that was really being supported by the state. They had to go back through a funding round, which the state, you know, accepts applications about once a year, really competitive application process. And so they did in 2023 receive the funding for this project. And so I've been working closely with their team. They've given a couple updates to the select board so far. They are working very hard to get the building permits pulled by the end of this year. And that's really our prime project for keeping us in safe harbor. But I will say it's not out of, we're not out of the woods yet. There's still some contingencies with state funding that they're trying to figure out because this project has been delayed so long. But we know the select board has put the pressure on it. I've put the pressure on the developers. We need the housing now. Don't want to see any further delays on the project. So I'm meeting with them probably every 2 to 3 weeks as a check-in, and we're really hopeful that we'll get the building permits by the end of this year.
Thank you.
Can I, Christy?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Gene Briskman. I was wondering about the tax that we're talking about, the land bank lookalike tax on properties over $2 million. My understanding was that was going to be a 0.5%. Is that correct? And if that is, how using 2023 property transactions, how much money would be generated by that 0.5% of property over 2 million?
Yeah, so you are correct. It is a 0.5%, and it's only on the value over 2 million. So if it was a $3 million house, only 1 million of that selling price would be taxed. And in 2023, it would have generated about $6 million for the Affordable Housing Trust.
And that would be used to build new housing, purchase existing housing, or it really is up to the trust?
It's up to the trust, but it would be all of the above. I always say that there's 3 ways, that the 3 C's in affordable housing. So there's converting short-term rentals into year-round housing, conserving our year-round affordable housing that we already have and maintaining that stock, and then creating additional affordable housing. So I think everybody can agree that we can't build our way out of this. We're a small island with limited resources. So there's things like the year-round deed restriction that could convert things into affordable housing. And then obviously there are quite a few projects around creation. And just kind of as a side tangent, something that I should bring up, part of the funding that we've received from town meeting, the trust has gone out and purchased vacant land. And we've been working to develop the request for proposals for the development of these lands. So we'll be issuing those. A couple of them are going to come out this summer. And so what we did is we issued one this past fall for 135 and 137 Orange Street. And unfortunately, we only received 1 bid, and a significant amount of that funding was coming from the town. And our bond counsel and financial advisors actually couldn't support that bid. And so we had to reject it. And so our plan is to release multiple RFPs in hopes that a developer, potentially like a bigger developer off island or locally that would have the economies of scale, could develop several of the parcels. So the parcel at 135 and 137 can develop 32 units of housing. We have a property on Bartlett Road at 12 Bartlett that could have 12 units of apartments. And we have a property near the hospital at 16 Vesper that could provide 19 units. So we're working to issue the RFP this summer in hopes that we'll get a few more competitive bids for those. So that goes on the creation side of the affordable housing.
Yeah, it seems to me that if we're raising $6 million from that 0.5% tax, using the numbers for 55 million for 64 units and realizing there are economies of scale there, that 6 million should be able to produce 4 or 5 new residences a year. So that looks like a pretty good continuing
Great return.
growth of affordable housing.
Absolutely.
Great. Any other questions for Christy?
Yeah.
Go ahead, then I'll ask.
Oh, thank you. First of all, Christy, you have a lot on your agenda. Thank you for doing all this work. So you're very competent and so forth, and thank you for addressing us. Unlike some of our other committee members, I'm not as informed on this issue. So forgive me if I'm asking something really sort of out of off field. But in this whole mix of affordable housing, has anybody gotten into the issue of year-round rentals? Or is that not your purview and it's not allowed by the state in all of these bonds and everything? I mean, that might be an alternative. I guess you folks have addressed it.
So some of what we do is rentals and some of it is home ownership. We've been working with ACT Now, and they just did a lease to locals program. So they provided a cash incentive to convert or create an unused dwelling into a year-round rental. And so they'll actually be coming to our next meeting on June 11th to talk about that program, but they have been requesting that the trust fund this, and that's something that the trust members and the select board would have to evaluate and decide on. But that could be another opportunity to provide some sort of incentive for a year-round rental. But that is high on our priority as well.
Oh, wonderful, because it would be supplemental, which would be great. So people who maybe are not interested in purchasing have an alternative.
Has there been, if I can just ask one last question, has there been any discussion of trying to get the land bank involved here and have them donate? For them to donate an acre is a spit in the ocean, literally, for them. And yet that's the cost of land is obviously incredibly high. It would incentivize, it would give an opportunity for developers to make these numbers work. Have you talked to them at all? And is there any way we can get around whatever restrictions they claim they have?
Yeah, so we definitely have a really good working relationship with the land bank. We've pursued a couple of opportunities together, which so far haven't panned out, but we're always looking. Jesse and I have had a really good working relationship. Their executive director, Jesse Bell, when they see a potential parcel that might be better suited for housing, they encourage the buyer to come to us first. So we are working in tangent to work on this. A lot of their current properties do have restrictions, but one thing I will say just around the cost of land, there is a few community members that have been working on developing a community land trust, and that's kind of, I could say, another tool in our toolbox. But the Martha's Vineyard has a community land trust. It's a nonprofit organization that works on securing the land, and then when you give out the land for free, or on a 99-year lease, then the homeowner is responsible for just the price of the home, which reduces that overall price. So that's something that some community members have been working on and could come online relatively soon, which would take off the burden of the price of the land and allow people to own the home on top of it.
But I get that's all great. I'm just wondering an additional, the land bank is sitting on obviously hundreds of acres of open land on island.
Thousands of acres.
Yeah, exactly. And why, I mean, have you talked to them about saying, hey, it's not a matter of buying, it's a matter of them donating, saying, okay, we're going to make a donation here. We're going to give it to you, or give it to you at some incredibly low. We're going to sell it to you for some incredible, $1. What about working in that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad opportunity to have that discussion. At least from what I've learned, a lot of them, if donors specifically give it for conservation, then there's restrictions on there. But it's like I said, we're constantly working together, and so there might be new ways, new partnerships in the future.
What Peter mentioned is something that a few of us have talked about in the past, and that is the problem. When Tucker Holland was in your job before you, and he appeared before us, and he showed us his combination of slides, one of them, which shocked us all, it certainly shocked me, was the fact that when you look at the entire island of Nantucket, only 3% of the land is undeveloped, 3%. And so that brings to mind, so where are we going to find the land necessary to deal with our two things? One is the affordable housing problem, which we all know is very serious. And the second problem, which I'm familiar with as a member of the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, is when we have to move people away from the shorelines, and part of the process that is being explored all over the United States is buying people out from their homes and moving them to other locations to save whatever's left of the shoreline. And once again, when you look at the fact that there's only 3% of the island is available, the numbers don't work. And where do the numbers work? Well, the land bank has a ton of land that used beautifully for parks or recreation sorts, golf course, stuff like that. That's great. But there's also an awful lot of land which is not being used at all, which is pretty close in some cases to popular, areas that are already covered by a lot of local homes. And the question is, would there be a way? Could somebody figure a way? And I think the land bank certainly has resisted this. I know when Brian Sullivan and Tucker Holland suggested it one day, the land bank wasn't very accommodating about saying, what a great idea, let's figure out how to do that. But at the end of the day, where we don't have the land to take care of those two needs, affordable housing, and to deal with what's going to happen with our shrinking size of the island based on the normal tidal flows, coastal erosion, storm, and stuff like that. So it's something I hopefully will continue to be talked about, but likely there'll probably need to be some change in the rules of the land bank, and getting any of that done will be quite difficult, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think that requires legislative changes to allow the land bank to use property that it owns in a different way than it is currently used for, public recreation or whatever the words are. One of the things that occurs to me, and I don't know whether it would be allowed under the statute that governs the land bank, with respect to coastal resiliency, would whether they could swap property. In other words, swap buildable land bank property for soon to be unbuildable coastal property.
Literally oceanfront. It'd be very.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think they do have the right, Peter, to swap property.
Yeah.
Or they have the right to sell pieces of their property that haven't been donated with restrictions.
Yeah.
But I think they have sold property.
But that's also the bigger picture. We have a affordable housing issue that needs work, whether or not those rules ever change. And it sounds like that work is being done ever so slowly, and with, it's just jaw-dropping to hear a $22 million project become a $50 million project, for reasons that nobody can control. But that's the way life works. But in any event, for reasons that only I can control, we have to move on. And, I want to thank Christy very much. The actual compensation reward for your appearance today is you will get an invite to come back at a future date.
On time, but we'll be on time.
Everybody has been overjoyed by that. And so I see the smile on your face, and I appreciate that. But thank you so much for presenting to us. I know there's a lot of new information that I had not heard before, and so it's been very useful. And also for standing by while we figured out our technical problems this morning.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me. And my email's on the town site if you guys have any follow-up questions. And hopefully I'll see you on island this summer.
Very good.
Thank you, Christy. Thanks so much.
That'd be great. So our next speaker,
Peter, if pardon me for interrupting. Pam is trying to get on. I don't know how. I gave her the code. I gave her the new code.
Oh, so I probably need to find that waiting room. Okay, I see there's a person
here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You've done it.
Good, thanks. So there Pam she is.
Okay. Joining us momentarily. I've been checking that from time to time, but as I say, this is like the job for a one-arm paper hanger here, and my good arm is not all that good anyway. So. Good. So Donna, would you sort of bring us up to date on the town council town council committee.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
It would be my pleasure. Over the past few months, we have met mostly, I actually did a report. We had met mostly every other week. Our members include, because I don't think I've mentioned that before, Joe Grouse, who's our chair, Jeff Carlson, our vice chair, Kelly Steffen, Carolyn Baltzer, Bo Barker, Tom Dixon of the Select Board, of course, Curtis Barnes, Rachel Mandel, Jill Veith, Jeremy Bloomer, and myself, non-voting. We're continuing to learn about town councils, open town meetings, and representative town governments. We've kind of distilled it down to those three. Our sources over the last months have been Massachusetts Municipal Association, which is a group comprised of over 100 municipalities in the state of Massachusetts, the Collins Institute, guest speakers, and the knowledge of our members, especially Joe Grouse, who was on FinCom. Ever-present issues discussed each meeting, pertinent advantages and concerns presented by each of those three forms of government. Many members are leaning towards recommending a town council. The advantages: regular meetings, not just an annual one, greater opportunity for participation, which is major. Citizens, voters and non-voters, which would be us, are able to participate. There's a greater participation opportunity. And educating citizens about island issues during council meetings so that they can make better informed decisions about issues to be discussed and voted on. Some of our speakers have been Leslie Snell, Director of Planning. Her opinion is there is more opportunity, quoting her, for community participation versus the challenges and complexity of a single annual town meeting. She shared, though, that there is an immense workload just to prepare for the annual town meeting, months. She emphasized on the importance of community engagement, which the town council would satisfy, and informing the community of issues, which also the town council would satisfy. Nancy Holmes was another speaker. She's our town clerk. She confirmed 10% of our population attend ATM, which we've discussed. Currently, there are 14,200 in our population with 9,800 registered voters. And she's going to reach out to other communities in Massachusetts to find out what the challenges were in transitioning to a town council and benefits of the town council. Denise Cronow, FinCom chair, spoke. Last year, her committee endorsed studying a transition to town council, and her concerns and ours, how we transition and the impact on voters. And of course, the issue of communication. That is so key. Every one of our speakers has talked about how we communicate and how we will transition. On May 22nd, our guest speaker was Mark Ells, thanks to Curtis Barnes, who has a relationship with these folks. He's the town manager, which would be not town mayor, but town manager of a town council. A town manager is the administrator, and he is appointed. The mayor, of course, is more of a political appointment. Mark, in 1990, Barnstable transitioned to a town council from, I think it was ATM, but I'm not sure. He's been town manager for 15 years. His background, I believe, was MBA plus engineering, well qualified. Their town council has 13 members elected by precincts, and that's very important. In fact, in our last meeting, which was Wednesday, Curtis put together an organizational chart which would show what Barnstable does, and very much could be a template for what we might create here in Nantucket. Many governments in Massachusetts have transitioned to town council. It's more efficient, it's more often, addresses issues, greater participation. For us, and I've been vocal about it in our meetings, it's definitely to our advantage. And Mark Ellis, I asked him, and he said definitely. They have about 300, I don't know about 300. They have quite a few boards, committees, and many non-voting taxpayers are encouraged to serve on those. So it would be from the bottom up, and it would work out very well to our advantage. And if somebody wants to speak at a town council, some communities have just a log where you sign in, and then you can speak at that meeting. So it's very immediate. It works very well, I think, but definitely very good for us. There are some members who are not as enthusiastic about a town council at the moment, but we continue to discuss it. It's going to be a lot of work if we do decide to move forward and recommend a town council. We also will have to either create a special act or amend our charter. Does anybody have any questions? And I'll do my best to try to answer them.
Yeah, I have my same question from last time, and that is anybody drafting anything? You've mentioned this chart that Curtis Barnes put together, which sounds interesting.
I can email it to you. I'll take a picture of it, or somehow I'll get it to you if you like, and you can distribute it if you want. Peter, you're frozen, at least for me.
It is.
Peter Halley, you're frozen.
Yeah, I see he's frozen.
Yes, he is frozen.
Must be my internet.
Oh, okay, you're fine now.
Okay, yeah, my internet, burps every once in a while. So I guess my question was, at some point, if we're going to actually look at a town council style, somebody's gonna have to draft a bylaw. And
we're not there yet, Peter, at all.
Yeah, nothing yet. Yeah.
Because there are some members who are not convinced that this is the way we should move forward.
Yeah.
And until we have unity, we cannot go forward. Either go forward and recommend it, or say no action at this time. We also hosted the gentleman who was the former chair of the TCSC. I guess it was several years ago. And everybody's saying the same thing. It is to our advantage. Some people are hesitant about moving forward and approving it. So there will not be anything yet. We're aiming for something by annual town meeting 2025. We'll see how we do. Don't know yet.
Yeah. So what is the definition of unity? Until we have unity, is it 5-4, or is it 9-0, or?
That's up to Joe Grouse, as far as what he considers unity. Joe is very much a proponent of it, as am I, as a number of others. But there is some concern from Tom Dixon, for example, select board. And we keep saying, just as you had said, and it was just reiterated in our last meeting on Wednesday, that the select board would be perfect to move over into town council right away. But he has some reservations. And I don't know if it's Tom or if it is the select board.
Yeah, it strikes me that that's a sort of political horse trading issue, and I don't know how to get around it.
I'm just a member of this committee. Yeah.
If the lack of unity, if one could define where everybody is on this committee, if those who have serious questions are the ones who would be displaced potentially, again, sort of drafting up a bylaw that doesn't displace them might help. It's just.
We're getting into politics and I can't go there.
Yeah.
Joe actually did say on Wednesday, I had suggested the importance of unification, importance of unity, and Joe reiterated that on Wednesday. He felt that that was very important, and we all had to be on the same page, because one of our next steps would be to reach out to the community. But we have to be sure this is where we want to go before we go to the community as a united group.
Yeah, yeah.
And Peter, I think Donna hit it like right on the head. So much of this is communication and education. And Donna, how many times has it come up in conversation with Tom Dixon there that it's very likely the Board of Selectmen will become the town council. There could be additions, there could be,
that's what I've been saying.
Yeah, representative districts.
I don't think,
yeah.
I think given all the meetings, I've attended every meeting. Given all the meetings, this is where we are. And Joe is very diplomatic. And he has decided from just this past meeting, we're not moving forward yet. But we realize communication to our citizens, our voters, non-voters is very important before, and then we can move forward, but not until we're unified. Okay. And Gary, you had a question?
Well, I was just thinking that it's rare to have everyone agree, even with the short-term rules, where you had 9 people, you had 7 out of 9 who ended up voting for the proposal that was included in the warrant, except for the Trump trial. You never get, 12 people in a room and agree on the same thing. So the question is, I don't know what your chairman of this group feels when he's talking about unity. If you had is it 9 people? Is it 9 members right now?
9 or 10, yeah.
9 or 10? And
yeah.
the question
I
is,
don't vote. I can't vote.
I understand that, but if 8 out of the 9 feel that this is the way to go, I would hope that he doesn't say, well, we can't get unanimity completely, then we can't move forward. And it's interesting when you talk about the benefits to the non-voting taxpayers, all that, what that means to me, and I can see where people feel it's a good advantage, and I probably agree with that, in that if the legislature is now the select board plus 4, say these 9 people, and anyone can come to those meetings and speak up, which is not what we can do at the ATM. So with the ATM, except for us, with our sole voice, none of the other seasonal people have a right to speak. So, so I do think it would be beneficial. And you're right about the politics of this, and that there are a handful of people, who the 5 or 6 people are, who dominate the ATM every year. They speak on all these subjects, even though they usually start off saying, I haven't read anything about it yet, but here's my opinion. Exactly. Anyway, those are the people who will say, I'm not sure we're ready for this yet, because they don't want to give up whatever power they seem to have by being the few number of people, A, that show up, and B, that actually speak at these meetings. But you're doing good work, so I hope they continue down this path.
Thank you, Gary. I would say that judging or looking at the way Joe is approaching every meeting, he's giving people time to really be certain that they want to move forward. I would expect that if we don't have 9 out of 9, if we have 8 out of 9, 7 out of 9, we would probably still recommend it. We were what is the term? Chartered to do this, or we were charged to do this, and we want to. Most of us want to move forward. We just need a little more time, and that's really Joe's decision, I believe. I've asked for a vote, and one of our members said no, and that's perhaps perception or political. I'm not too sure, and it's not for me to judge. But Sarah Alger spoke at one of our meetings, and she did confirm that if a non-voting taxpayer wanted to bring something to the floor of the ATM or create a warrant, they would have to meet with her before the meeting. And I'm sure there are a number of things, a number of steps they have to take. So the town council would eliminate that, definitely. Someone else, Donald, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I hope this isn't too far off, but this situation reminds me of Benjamin Franklin's last speech at the Constitutional Convention.
I didn't hear it.
Were you there, Donald?
Yeah,
I said I didn't hear it. So tell us
Not you,
about it,
Donald,
Don.
but Donald.
well, he was very frail at the time, and somebody else had to read it for him. But generally, he said there's a lot of things in this work we have that I don't agree with, and perhaps I'll never agree with it. But we're a collection of thinking people. We are people who understand the issues. And therefore, because we can't do any better than that, we should pass this document. And he said, and hope in the future people would improve it, or they would hope that it would be well managed. So it's not going to just depend on a piece of paper. It's going to be who's elected to whichever representative body is picked out. So this calls for a well-informed electorate.
Yes.
But I would recommend people go and read that. You might get some ideas from it, from what he said. It's his last speech to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia.
Oh.
And
Thank you, Don.
This issue.
Okay. Any other questions or observations? Yeah, Donna.
I just wanted to ask, our next meeting is in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And would
3 weeks.
Would you like to take a vote here on our committee? And perhaps I can deliver something to our next meeting, to our committee members, about what our feelings are about it. I think we could do that.
I think if the group is ready to, indicate what they want, and I would say, if I were to phrase what you're suggesting we vote on is whether or not this group is in favor of a town council form of government, with the caveat that we'd need to see what the bylaw looks like. But as a principle, moving on from the town meeting to town council, I personally would be in favor of that. And somebody want to make a motion, and we can take a roll call vote.
Also move. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So just to be clear, I guess it is a sort of it's whether or not the ACNVT is in favor of a transition to a town council form of government, subject to working out an appropriate bylaw.
Sounds good.
Well, could we be a little stronger about that? Are we in a position to say we are interested in supporting a town council because it would give us a greater voice, more participation?
No, I don't think we should say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely
It's
not.
about us. It's not
Donna?
about us. It's about
Right.
having a better form of government for the town.
Right.
It's
Donna,
about
sorry,
all.
Pam?
could we just reword it slightly and say that our committee supports the transition to this
Yes.
town council due to the increased representation it will provide all residents of Nantucket? Is that a little
That
more?
sounds good.
More
That
generous?
sounds very good, Pam.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think, Peter?
So Pam, why don't you make the motion and give us the precise wording? Because you
Okay.
don't have to change the
Well,
wording if you don't have a
she's on the
motion.
committee also. She's my alternate.
I'm an alternate.
So it should be somebody else if they so are inclined. Donald?
I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to vote present. This is not crystal clear enough for something that we should vote on. So that
And I also think that what was interesting in the early stages of this committee is that some of the other towns that have done this in Massachusetts have done very interesting things. Like they have maintained a small town meeting for a few less urgent issues that allows the town to come together for those things. But they have really promoted the fact that issues and opportunities for funding, for grants, et cetera, and opportunities for people to voice opinions and concerns are much greater in the town council format. So there's a lot of ways this can be drawn up in a bylaw. So we are a little premature, but we're supportive that this would be a better route.
That's what I'm interested in is, Peter, if our ACNVT committee would like to make some sort of supportive motion. And if not, you're not ready yet, that's fine. If we are not ready yet, that's fine.
Well,
but it would help those of us who are advocates of moving forward if we so decide.
Okay.
My problem is that it's very unclear what we're talking about at this point. A town council, how big would the town council be? Who would be on it? How would it get appointed or elected? All of those things are still very unclear. And so while personally I think that the town meeting is not a particularly good form of our form, our type of town meeting doesn't seem to work particularly well. I'm not sure that the town council, I don't know enough about the town council to be in favor or not in favor. I live in Brookline where we have a representative town meeting. We have 13 precincts or thereabout, and each precinct can elect 15 town meeting members so that we have a total of somewhere close to 200 town meeting members. Mm-hmm. And then we have 5 elected town whatever you'd call it. I guess you'd call it
maybe boards or committees. Or precincts. Barnstable has precincts.
The 5 people who are elected to the board, whatever, I forget.
Select board.
Yeah. Select board, I guess, are elected by the entire town, by all 50,000 residents or whatever. And that seems to work pretty well for Brookline. Then we have a town manager who runs things. That seems to work for Brookline. Maybe a bigger town council would be better for Nantucket, but I don't know how the town council is going to be different.
Okay.
So that takes me back.
So Donna, if I could just say the town council, it's from bottom up, Jean. you have your precincts, let's say. If Nantucket was divided, I'll use the example that I was using of Barnstable. If you have 13 precincts, and those precincts would have an elected representative. Those representatives would report to the council members. That's a simple way of explaining, but that's how it would work. So many governments now have transitioned to town council from the ATM because there is more opportunity for representation. And so it's actually a pretty simple structure.
Yeah.
And I can send you, yes, Peter?
Yeah,
Peter?
I think we're getting very confused here. Jean, I think in response to your question, you might vote against a straw vote on town council. But the remit of this committee is not to figure out whether Nantucket should have a representative town meeting. It is whether it should have a town council.
So Peter, would it make more sense for our committee to wait until Donna and the bigger committee start pushing out some education, and Donna, you can answer this too, some education to the public on where they'd like to go and then have us get behind it? Or would you rather see us get behind it earlier?
I was thinking,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I was thinking, given what has been going on, it would only be helpful if we wish to support the effort to advocate for a town council.
Okay.
I'm not asking, and part of the issue that we have goes back to unification, because Pam, we cannot go out as a group, as a committee, and propose this if we're not unified first.
Okay.
We want to move ahead.
So you got to unify before you educate. Okay.
Okay, but so, I think you've got a horse and a cart issue here.
Yeah.
And that is, we can say the word town council form of government all we want, but until somebody puts something on paper that tells everybody, what their role is in the town council and how it's going to operate, it's hard to support it. And of course, the more you put on paper, the more people could get their noses out of joint because they don't like what they're seeing on paper. But I would certainly advocate for taking the next step, which is putting something on paper to define what a Nantucket town council form of government would look like according to this committee. I think that may help solidify either support or maybe opposition to this. But right now, nobody knows what we're talking about. What does it mean?
So maybe the bigger issue right now is to just make it a more general, like maybe we make a motion in our group to do something like what I said, that we support, moving in this direction because of increased representation for all residents. But we really can't define a lot of this yet because, as Donna will say, like the committee hasn't gotten a total buy-in. And once they get the buy-in, then they're going to talk about, is it the same number of representatives that we have in a selectman form, or are they going to add, or they're going to be precincts? There are so many technical things that will come later. But Donna, I feel like if we get behind the movement, it might help the committee. Is that what you're feeling?
That's what I'm requesting. But
yes.
if our committee, go ahead, Gary.
I agree with Pam's suggestion. My own personal view is that I was so horrified by what went on at this year's ATM.
Yes.
Horrified.
Yeah.
1,500 people show up the first day. Yeah. Half of that show up the second day. And the third day, we had less than 400 people voting as our legislature, less than about 4% of the population deciding on a number of important issues. Mm-hmm. So in my view, I am desperate that the town move forward. And remember the fact that there were only 400 people voting on that third day. But even on the first day with 1,500 people, it means that there were 8,000 people disenfranchised. They
Yes.
didn't make it because they couldn't be there. Some were babysitting, some were working, some didn't have 5 hours to kill every night. So we really need to make a change. And we're not agreeing to anything right now, except to say that we're encouraged. We'd like to continue.
We need something better.
To talk
That
about
sounds
the town
very
council.
good, Gary.
And
yes.
Just what
Gary,
Pam said.
I agree 100%. And a number of people I know who are full-time residents on the island and spoke to me that week as they were also horrified because they couldn't go because they were working. And a lot of them came out and said, isn't the world sophisticated enough where we can vote remotely? So, I mean, everyone knows they need a way to be better represented on the island.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to change something.
What are the simple words that would be helpful to you? And we can take a straw vote or.
Go ahead, Pam. Say it again, Pam.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that the ACNVT supports the transition of government to a town council format because of the increased representation that residents would have throughout the year. It's like a very general.
That's fine. That would be great.
Do we have any? I don't see how that will really work.
I mean, yes.
Even if you say it didn't work very well with 1,500 people going to a town meeting, if you have a town council, how would the other 6,500 voters participate?
They could show up.
I would say, we don't know yet.
They could show up for a meeting anytime something's on the agenda.
Gene, what would happen is the meetings would be maybe once every 3 weeks, once every 4 weeks. It would be remote. It would be hybrid because we're still able to do hybrid. Okay. So there are many ways that we can make a town council work. You know what, Jean, why don't you check into, if you're interested, check into Barnstable. They have their meetings, I think, once every 3 weeks, and see how they do it. It's very orderly. People sign in if they want to speak or ask questions about current issues. They sign in on a log. They get 2 minutes. Everybody gets 2 minutes, and then they discuss. You're kind of asking if we have everything ready. We don't. There's a lot that has to be done. And I think for some of the folks who are hesitant about approving a motion to move forward is because we realize after having speaker after speaker for 6 months, there's a lot of work that we are advocating that we do, and also that that Nantucket does. So we realize it's going to be an inordinate amount of work. I've explained what town council is in a very brief way, which is your precincts and then your elected officials for each precinct. The precinct goes to the town, their corresponding town council member, which is the legislative body. They have a president, they have a vice president, and then you have the town manager. All of the commissions that we have would fit into it and filter into it. Peter Halley, I'm going to send you Curtis Barnes' organizational chart, which is a Barnstable's town council, to give you, it's very clear. It gives you an idea of how this could work. And then what we would have to do is just tailor our commissions and so forth into the blocks. It's very simple. Actually, let me see if I have it here. So those are resources to give you an idea of what a town council does. It's very simple once you take a look at it. And the town manager is exactly that. He is appointed. He has to have an important, specific background, but he is the administrator. The legislative body is the town council.
And Donna, would you say that the biggest difference is at the town council meetings, if there is a decision that needs to be made, it could be made throughout the year rather than everything waiting till the yearly meeting.
It can be made probably depending on what the issue is. It could be made that day if the town council members agree. So it could be instantaneous, or depending on what the issue is, it could be done at the next meeting or the meeting after that. They're very careful. I do recommend looking at Barnstable. I've been watching their town council meetings, and they're very efficient. And that's one thing we don't have with an annual, one of the things we don't have with an annual town meeting. It's not efficient. Members come, they're not informed. If you've got a couple of kids and you're working and your partner's working, whatever, you can't keep up with everything. But if there's a particular issue in your precinct or on the island that is of interest, you could show up at that meeting, learn about it, discuss it, and when it's appropriate, not for us at the moment, is vote for it. So it's pretty effective.
Right.
Anyway, Pam's suggestion is really not very detailed and doesn't have to be. It's just, we're for motherhood. We're for greater participation.
Exactly. We're for motherhood.
All members of the community.
That's all I'm asking. I just thought
that's all we're saying.
I just thought it would be helpful if our members are so inclined to say, address the committee in 2 weeks and say, our committee just would like you to know, blah, blah, blah.
You're heading in the right direction. Yeah.
That's it. I'm not asking for details or anything else.
Because
if we don't want to do it, that's fine. Okay.
Will non-voting taxpayers be able to vote in any of this? Or so our ability to impact town decisions won't change very much.
Oh, yes, it will. It will change quite a bit, Jean. And that's what I'm so enthusiastic about. It will change because we will be invited onto commissions and boards. We will have a voice. And then depending on what the issue is and so forth, then it bubbles up to the town council member. So yes, we do. Now we don't. We have to go to Sarah Alger months before whatever her requirements are and say, we have something we want to present. And she makes the decision whether we can put something forward on ATM. But in a town council, everything's public.
And also, Donna, like right now, we can go to a Board of Selectmen meeting, even though we're not voters, and we can express our opinions about different things. So we would also be able to go to town council meetings or attend them and express, concerns or opinions as part of the public. And those concerns get taken into account when the council makes their decisions. So in a way, we can be involved throughout the year, and we don't have to, and I think we have the same, maybe a little more impact because we can get into some more focused discussions.
Which we can do now at Board of Selectmen meeting.
But not for legislative purposes. That's the ATM where no one's allowed to speak except us.
Right.
So it doesn't matter that we can speak. It doesn't matter that we can speak at the select board meetings because they're not our legislature. They're not approving the laws.
Right.
But if we had a town council, anyone could speak, including us, and they are our legislature. Yes. And that's our voice that hasn't been heard.
Okay.
Our voice, Jean, our voice, if I may, our voice will have more weight in town council. And I can't explain in every detail. I have
I'm going to gavel this.
Papers, etc.
We have to leave this. We're either going to have a motion or not.
We're not. Okay.
Sorry, I've been shouting at my computer, but I've been muted, so I've been shouting at myself here. I'm happy to entertain a motion of support for further getting on with the process here, and proposing a town council form of government for the town to agree upon, or not. But I think this discussion really has pointed out that there's a lot of confusion is not the right word, but people have different points of view because they don't really understand what it is that this town council will be, and what our role in it would be. My own personal view is that if and when a bylaw is drafted, that this committee would remain in existence under the new town council, so that in addition to the access that you've all spoken about, which, frankly, it's the same access everybody has today, other than at the town meeting, it would continue, and we still have a focus group here that could provide advice on non-resident taxpayers, to the extent that non-resident taxpayers are not already, going in the middle of winter to town council meetings and providing whatever advice they have. And I've drafted up language. It's a first draft that I've started to circulate to some people. So I think we should indicate that we support continued development of the town council proposal.
I want to second Pam's motion.
Oh, I'll make a motion. So the motion is that our committee, we'll do the formal stuff, supports the transition to a town council form of government due to the increased representation of all residents with the legislative body. Should we say that?
No, leave that out.
Just due to the increased representation of all residents.
Throughout the year.
Throughout the year, yes.
Okay. Any second for that?
Second, I second it.
Any discussion, further discussion?
Are we considered residents in this?
Yes, we're residents.
Yes.
We're
not registered voters, but we're residents.
We're residents.
You will not have, Jean, we will not have a vote, is the answer, but we are residents.
So we can, yes. So we will be represented at these meetings by attending and voicing our concerns.
Right.
And Peter, as I had said before, I would like to send you Barnstable's organizational chart, which is enlightening.
Good.
I think that
Can you send it?
Let's have a vote. Hold on. Let's keep some order here. There's no further discussion. I hear no further discussion on Pam's motion. So I'm going to call the question, or would somebody call the question?
What question?
Okay. All those in favor of Pam's motion signify by raising their right hand. And let me just go down the list. So I'll just go down the list and you can respond when your name is called. Gary Beller.
Aye.
Yes, okay, that's one. And Patty Deuster.
I'm for it.
Okay, that's two. Lynn is not here. Don Green is going to abstain. Is that right?
Present.
Present. Okay, so you're present. I will. Well, I guess I get to hold of Peter Kahn. Are you still?
Aye.
Yes. That's three. Donna.
Yes. Aye.
Four. Steve Perlman.
Yes.
That's five. Pam Swan.
Aye.
Okay, Scott Ulm.
Tell mute.
Scott, you're muted.
Yes, aye.
So yeah, aye. Okay, seven. Jean.
I'll vote yes.
Okay. And Bill is not here, and I'm going to vote yes too. So I think that is 9, 4, 0 against, and 1 present. That so it passes. Pam, if you would at some point could just type out and send to Kathy your motion. Of course,
perfect.
We have, on the record here, the
okay.
Record, but that would be good.
And Donna, you want me to send you that also, right?
Yeah,
it would be a good idea.
Yeah, since you're going to,
because I'm going to present it next week. I think that would help.
Okay.
And Peter Hallie, I'm going to send you the organizational chart, and if you would please distribute it to our committee members.
Thank you.
We will do that, and then we'll have to make it part of our record too, which so that we don't violate any. So what I'm going to suggest is, first of all, Lynn is not here, and so the update on advisory committee on we can wait for that week. I think given the hour, we might also, move over the STR issue. I know it's an important issue. The lay of the land right now is there are two article proposals. One which some of us think are discriminate against non-residents taxpayers, and the other which does not. But unless anybody feels that they really would like to discuss this today, we can skip over that. Anybody want to discuss this, it being now 12:05 or so? Hearing none, so we'll skip over that. Issues of concern, what I had hoped to do is try to do what we tried to do last year, which is instead of being, whipped around by whichever way the wind blows, develop a list of things that we are interested in for the coming year. And I think we can do that on the, is it June 21st or June 22nd? PR committee, do you have a further report?
Yes.
Okay, so at the next meeting, so confirm guest speakers. The next meeting is June 22nd. The meeting after that is July 13th. Shall I invite Libby for the June 22nd meeting? It's typically at the beginning of each year, and this is sort of just before the beginning of the new fiscal year. She gives a sort of state of the island.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I will ask her for that, and if she can't make that, it'll be the July 13th. I think it's probably time to get our new police chief, not on a same meeting, but she's been here long enough to probably come and speak to us in some future meeting. So we'll look forward to June 22nd. I'll send Libby an invitation, and then we'll know whether or not we need to invite somebody else or not for that one. But she's usually really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Peter, one other thought. Since we're not meeting again till June 22, whenever that is, a lot of stuff's going to happen on the STR rules between now and then. And my question is, we have Peter Kahn and Bill Gardner were our representatives on the short-term work group. As you know, what the town is trying to do is they're trying to figure out if they can get some unanimity among the handful of new proposals on short-term renting that are going to the September ATM meeting. The deadline for public proposals is already passed. That's May 30. That's done. So the only one that's going to be able to add a new STR regulation is the town, the select board. And that's why the town has scheduled a series of meetings on June 3rd, June 4th, and June 5th with a small group, including Matt Fee and Tom Dixon, who are the two representatives of the select group, who are meeting with the proponents of these 3 or 5 or 6, I think last time from Kathy's memo, looked like there were six different proposals, who are meeting to see if they can come to some agreed upon compromise position, which would then become the town's addition and will be able to be included in the September ATM meeting. But I would love to know that Peter Kahn or Bill or someone who's familiar with this is going to worry about this on our behalf, because that one group that Charity Benz is part of, all they're trying to do is screw the off-island people. They don't really care much about us, and they very delicately put stuff in there that is faintly discriminatory against the seasonal people on short-term rentals. So I would hope somebody is looking at that. And if we're not going to have a meeting until June 22, by then it may all be done. So what do you think, Peter? Are you guys going to be able to follow that a little bit?
Yeah, I will follow it with them. Gary, maybe you want to be involved somewhat with that?
Well, I'm trying to save the island from sinking, you know. How many things can I do at the same time?
Well, you're like Atlas with the island on your shoulders.
I mean, what time are these meetings? Are they in the evening? What time are these meetings? That's the first I've heard.
They're either at 4. They're either at 4 or 5:30. I'm trying to remember.
Are they also on Zoom, or is it all?
Yeah,
just
I can't be.
Yes, they're all on Zoom. They're all on Zoom.
Okay.
Well, I may be. I mean, I can probably tune in on Monday. Tuesday is going to be. Well, I'll work with Peter Halley and whoever else wants to.
Yeah.
So we can make sure we cover it. But
so it's going to be this coming week. You're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've only seen 2 proposals so far. Has anybody seen, proposal 3, 4, 5, and 6? No. It's like a.
I think that the issue. I mean, I quickly read the thing. I haven't studied it. I mean, the issue is how do you define residence? And does it, because they have a certain number of days, and
right,
and by the certain number of days, that's where arguably the discrimination comes in, right?
Yes.
And it's a tricky issue because I don't know whether I think just by number of days is a problem for them. I mean,
okay.
But we can talk about that. Yeah.
So let's just take 1 minute on this, not to define residence, but to figure out where our group is. Our position in the past has been we are opposed to any proposal that discriminates against non-resident taxpayers, and right. we believe we have federal law on our side in that, and indeed it's gotten us across the line once or twice already. So that's pretty clear, and I think that continues to be our position. The other sort of piece of this all has to do with what I'll call ticky-tacky regulation of whether it's 4 weeks or 7 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever of rentals. And that, I think we leave it up to the voters, so long as they have to be bound by the same rules right. that they propose right. for us, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay. So I think we've got our position, clear, and we can proceed with the knowledge that we're representing the will of this group. Good. Which Gary's smiling because he thought this up in the first place. Okay. So then we'll go on, and I'll work with Peter. And our first chore will be to figure out when these meetings are and how to get into them.
Peter, when you figure that out, can you distribute that to the entire committee? Because some of us may want to.
You may want to chime in yourselves. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll send that around. I always worry about that being a public meeting violation.
No, it's scheduled. I don't think so. Yeah, scheduled purpose. No.
And so I'm not going to just. It'll be informational.
As long as we're not deliberating.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Then I think we have a motion to go ahead, Gene.
Well, there's one other thing that I unfortunately missed the last meeting, and I'm not sure why I did. I think, but anyway,
you're playing golf.
Was I? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But anyway, there was something brought up about looking into restricting construction work in the historic district or in town, and I'm very interested in that because I happen to live there, and I don't know if we need to set up a subcommittee or what the thought was at the last meeting, which I missed. So
let me address that, Gene. I took that off the agenda for this meeting because there was no concrete proposal being made by anybody. And I tend to deal better with concrete proposals than just having, discussions about what ifs. I understand from Lynn Filipski that Libby is trying to put together a group. It's basically another noise regulation group, and she's seeking input from all of the various town associations. And so I think that's something that's still brewing, and that we'll be able to either get into.
You froze, Peter.
Neighborhood association.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, fine. I'm more than willing to be represent our views in whatever forum
Gene,
on the road you think is appropriate.
So I have a couple of comments on that for Gene. First, Gene, a little while ago, I forget if it was 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago, Kathy Baird sent around to all of us, so you got it as well, a proposal that she received from Caroline Baltzer. Caroline Baltzer is a Brand Point resident. She's actually one of the few full-time residents in Brand Point. And she was the one who was talking with the Brand Point Association and with the Sconset Association about a provision that would limit heavy-duty construction during these summer months. And I urge you to take a look at that what Kathy sent around, because Carolyn actually wrote quite an excellent thought piece about that. And whether it'll have any traction, I don't know. We tried that several years ago to no avail. Libby put together a committee, and Peter was on that committee, and we got screwed by the real estate voting construction industry, who were also on that committee. So nothing happened. I'm not sure it would happen, but you want to take a look at the proposal that you have now, because it's well written. The only other thing I wanted to mention to you is that I told Peter this at the beginning of this meeting before he got on, everyone got on. The zoning board had given permission. There's a big project in Nantucket on the corner of Easton Street and Cliff Road, where right next to the Nantucket Hotel, someone bought the old building and they are raising it, and it's sitting there on stilts now. And it's been sitting there all throughout the month of May, when I was on island during the month of May, and it's been sitting there, right? So, and they were given permission by the zoning board to keep building, but they were told they have to stop between Memorial Day and Labor Day. No heavy construction, right? Anyway, 2 weeks ago, I saw in the newspaper that an application had been made by the builders to extend their period of construction from May 30 to June 30. I was so upset about it. I wrote a letter to the zoning board, and I said I'm going to come to the meeting as well. So I wrote a letter to all 5 members of the ZBA, and I said, A, it's going to destroy traffic. Once the season is here after Memorial Day, you shouldn't allow traffic that blocks Cliff Road and Westchester and Center Street at this time. And second, I said, it's also setting a terrible precedent when you put in a provision that says no heavy duty building between, Memorial Day and Labor. Now you want to change that. Terrible idea. Anyway, I showed up at the meeting, and guess what? I spoke, my usual half hour, saying why it's a terrible idea. The builders showed up as well. And guess what? The ZBA approved it. And interestingly, they said, okay. And one of the big complaints was made by not just the Nantucket Hotel said, could you at least change so you don't build between 8 in the morning and 9 at night, or 8 at night? And they said, yeah, we'll only go 9 to 5. And then the people living next to the Nantucket Hotel on North Street were complaining because they can't even get out of their homes when the heavy duty construction trucks are there. And they said, well, we'll try to notify them. So the meeting was held last Thursday. Today is Sunday. Today is Saturday, right? The meeting was Sunday at 1 o'clock. We finished the meeting at 2:30. That was Thursday. Friday morning, I could show you a picture of a gigantic crane. Cliff Road is closed. The ZBI approved it Thursday afternoon, and magical, right? All of a sudden, all this heavy duty equipment just showed up. So it looked like the fix was in. I mean, I'm very upset about it, but that's what we're dealing with in trying to protect the community during the summer months. But anyway, I'm always for it. I just think it's a tough road to hoe, but take a look at Carolyn's proposal. It was well written, and maybe we can support that someday.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I make the motion.
Second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed to adjourning? No. Okay, great.
Okay, stay well,
Thank
everybody.
you all.
Long meeting.
Thank you.
See you on the 22nd.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks.